Championships are won in the fall, teams are formed in the summer, but the hard work is put in during the spring. Spring practice begins early next week for the Panthers, and they'll be looking to elevate their defense while looking for any kind of answer on offense. We discuss that and more on this week's Hail to Pitt podcast.
What was your message about finishing it in these final 30 minutes?
Well, it happened in West Virginia where we knocked off number 2. It happened in South Carolina, and it's happening in Pittsburgh today. Our guys had a lot of guts tonight. We're just going to keep getting better. I mean, that's what it is. There's one hell of a game that you will never, ever forget. We shocked the world! Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt. This is the week of February 29th, and this is the Hail to Pitt podcast. I'm Alan.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Pam.
And just when we thought Jeff Capel was building a decent program back from the depths of hell, we learned that really what he's taken over is a ship that was formerly full of rats. Gross. Kevin Stallings attacking the Pitt football team. What the hell's going on? We're going to try to make some sense of this. I really honestly don't know where to begin. Pam, please help me on this episode. You're back, and I need your help. I can't make any sense of this. Former terrible basketball coach getting our football team in trouble, and I'm just trying to root for my Panthers.
Yeah, this may be beyond my comprehension to what happened in this situation.
This is just all sorts of wrong and bizarre and really not that concerning. Is it, Vince? At least tell me that it's not something to worry about. Just shake my head and scoff.
I don't think it's anything to worry about, but it is rather bizarre.
Rats! Terrible rats! But they're gone, at least. I don't know. Would you see? This is what I feel weird. I love the Pete. I love Oakland. But you ever like if someone told you you're going to move into a house and they're like, yeah, rats used to be here, but we got rid of them all. How would you feel, Vince?
Yeah, that's bad real estate. You may need to bring in an exterminator or a cleaner, as they say.
Capel, the cleaner, is here, so I'm not worried, baby.
You killed my brother, you dirty rat.
Kevin Stallings, good riddance, Hock2. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more regarding the PITT Pitt Panthers today on the Hail to Pitt podcast at H2P Show. On Twitter is where you can follow us. You could call into the voicemail 412-407-3387. Email us hail2pittpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, you'll see us Hail to Pitt podcast on all sorts of stuff like Reddit, Panther Lair. We're talking Pitt Panthers everywhere on the Pitternet with you, and we appreciate any feedback you give us. This show is brought to you by good people, not rats. Not rats like Kevin Stallings.
You killed my brother, you dirty rat.
This show's brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts, a good place to go on the internet and find yourself a quality friend in the podcasting world, a personal producer at prettyeasypodcast.com. Get your podcast started today. You want to do any kind of show, a sports show, a show about dirty, disgusting rats. You're an exterminator and you want to do an extermination podcast, go to prettyeasypodcast.com. Violations, Pam. There's so many. You want to go over all these?
Not really. It's kind of depressing. I mean, once you saw the headline, like they were going to be, I guess, charged or, whatever by the NCAA, I got extremely worried because I do not like it when schools cheat. But these violations are, even to me, a very moral individual when it comes to college sports. I even thought these were a bunch of baloney.
I mean, I can't believe we had all these coaches at practice, Vince. I'm ashamed of this program.
Yeah, for Pam, this is like staying up past 10 o'clock on a weeknight. This is, it's bad, but it's really not that bad. Yeah.
We'll
the
get over
football
it.
team. The football team hasn't been charged with anything of the sort since 1993, from what I saw. A 3-year probation. Narduzzi's going to have to miss a couple practices in August. They're going to lose 8 hours of athletic activity. Interested to see what that is. A couple quality control coaches are going to have to miss 3 days of practice. They're going to be fined $5,000 cash, all for just some extra coaches at practice.
This is such nonsense, and what a stinky. So what exactly happened here was Kevin Stallings got caught for doing whatever he did with hoops, and then he just pointed the finger over at football and said, "Well, look what they're doing." Is that what went down exactly?
Kinda. So Kevin Stallings was, had similar actions with extra coaches, and this was during his bad times. Whenever he was on basically a sinking ship, and Pitt administration wanted to get rid of this guy, and they were kind of looking for some things to kind of justly fire him. And he kind of said, the way I'm reading this is, if he's going down, he was going to take everybody down with him. So
wait, they needed other reasons than going over in the ACC.
Well, they were trying to get rid of his buyout. Is kind of what I'm talking about.
If you go over in the ACC, you can't get rid of someone.
Well, they can, but they didn't want to pay out the rest of his contract.
You dirty rat!
Well, that should, we need to put clauses in there then, Pam. You're right. If you go over in your conference, you don't get a buyout. That should be
correct.
Part of
That's my point.
Yeah, that should be a part of any contract.
He should have to pay back all that money that they paid him.
And then he snitching on football. I mean, gosh, this is so petty and lame, and I mean, I've never had a really hard feelings against Kevin Stallings for being a terrible coach and, ruining Pitt basketball, even as, I just thought he's just not a good coach, and, he was lame duck, came in.
Move on, yeah.
That's just, it was moving into the ACC, all kinds of excuses for the guy for why he didn't succeed. But now he's a true villain, an all-time villain for Pitt athletics to me. I will be constructing a Kevin Stallings dartboard, and for the 8 hours of athletic activities that football cannot have, they could come hang out with us. We're going to be at Nordy's, and we're going to put a Kevin Stallings dartboard up. And if you want to just hang out and waste those hours with your fellow Pitt students, we'll be at Nordy's downstairs at the Student Union, and we'll have a good time. We'll make up those hours. Maybe we'll also go over some playbooks. Is it illegal for students to help out the football team, Vince? If the coaches can't, maybe we should put together a touch football game as a mock practice. Is that illegal? Is that kosher with NCAA rules?
I'm gonna say let's not do that. Let's just be extra. We're on probation now. We gotta be extra cautious. Like,
it's not double
no extra
secret
cream
probation.
cheese on bagels.
Oh no!
No,
Thank God.
No, nothing like that. But correct me if I'm wrong. The basketball team got hit a little harder than the football team, right? The violations were, I guess, deemed a little more severe because of the video. From what I read, the video of the extra coaches at practice for Kevin Stallings, then he deleted the video as well to try and hide it, from my understanding, from an article I read about this situation.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
But luckily, the biggest takeaway with all this is there's no reduction in scholarships or anything along those lines.
There's really nothing.
No postseason ban. Nothing serious.
Honestly, the worst thing that happened is probably that local media that loves to just pounce on Pitt anytime something bad happens. There were a lot of those people chirping about this. And probably in the grand scheme of things, that's probably the worst thing that happened.
Oh God, it's
still not even that bad.
Compare these violations to I don't know, some other school in the middle of the state, and it's laughable. These are these are silly violations. And, in the NCAA, where, the rules are just so goofy. These, you could argue that these shouldn't even be rules. Extra practices, extra people on staff. What a joke. The thing I'm concerned with is that there was an actual rat person coaching our basketball team for all those years.
You killed my brother, you dirty rat.
I always thought he looked more like Frankenstein, Kevin Stallings, but he's a rat man. Spring practice beginning next week. Let's talk about the positive. I'm excited for spring practice to start keeping an eye on players' development. Vince, this is where the work for the 2020 season begins.
Yeah, and Vince, remind us, what freshmen have enrolled early? Do you know?
Yeah. There are several freshmen and newcomers, I should say, that are enrolling early.
I guess some transfers.
There's a couple. Jordan Addison, Israel Bonaconda, the Kroll, the tight end from Florida, Joey Yellen from Arizona State. So there's several guys to take a look at here, new guys, as well as a lot of redshirt freshmen, guys that didn't play last year. They're going to be getting involved. So I'm excited to see who is participating in these practices. A lot of times when guys are injured, they'll be held out of these things. But this is a good opportunity, Alan, to get some work done and kind of build upon some of the stuff that was lacking last year.
Oh, and also just to hear about guys who get in there early. Like I'm hyped for the style bender, Bonaconda getting in there. I don't know. I feel like he could be a special player, Vince. That's one player I'm definitely going to be reading about, any kind of details that come out from spring practices and how he's looking, what kind of reps he's getting, who he's practicing with as well. Those are things you want to keep an eye on. I'm really hyped to see him competing out there. On offense, like we've been saying, a lot of spots, a lot of available playing time come week 1 against Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, I like what you said about Bonaconda. The style bender, he's going to come in here and he is going to have a real opportunity, in my opinion, to take this backfield by storm, because as good as Vincent Davis was at times, he was just he didn't have the consistency, I guess, that was good enough for the coaches, and that he was not in there all the time. Guys like A.J. Davis and Todd Sibley, they had their moments, but just overall not getting it done. We talked about it at length. You could go back into the archives and look at it, listen to it, about how we just said there wasn't a commitment to the run. Offensive line wasn't great at times, but at the end of the day, none of these running backs really was able to take the reins of the backfield, and I'm hoping that the style bender could come in here and do that.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see the youngsters get in there, and we also, keep an eye on how the quarterbacks behind Kenny Pickett look, right? We gotta start paying those guys some attention, because there will be, a quarterback playing for Pitt one day that isn't Kenny Pickett, and if there's something unfortunate that happens to them in the season, you never know. And also, there is some promise there we got the Arizona State transfer kid, right? And then you got Patty you want to keep an eye on. And then don't forget Bevel. Yeah.
Yeah, you got 3 guys there that are just really going to be going at it to try to, be the next Kenny Pickett. And I would say, probably one of those guys is going to transfer next season. I'll say that.
Joey Yellen double transfer.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Really?
I'm not saying it's going to be him. I'm just saying that I don't think one of those guys will be on this roster next year.
That's the beauty of being a college quarterback now. I would kind of want to do that. It'd be so fun to go to 3 different colleges.
It's possible.
The NCAA is also looking at the transfer rules as well
right
now,
are.
But they're not going to get their act together in such a short period of time.
I see on our rundown here, Pam, the question, what answers do we want in these spring practices? What answers can we possibly get in spring practice?
Well, the one answer I want to know is Lucas Kroll going to be a more serviceable tight end for the first time in years for the Pitt Panthers? That's the guy that I'm watching, and
Oof.
I want to see those answers.
Like one that could catch the ball.
One that can catch the ball. We've heard that Whipple likes to use tight ends a lot in his offense. We heard that a lot going into last season. We were not able to see that because of the production and quality of play out of that position last year. From everything I read, Kenny Pickett and Lucas Kroll have really developed a relationship, and Pickett's really helped him ever since he stepped foot on campus. So I want to see that, and I want to see, as a result, does the Whipple offense actually able to feature a tight end?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if we're getting those answers till the season starts, Pam, because
no, but this
they
is
could
a good way to see.
Yeah, those guys could end up looking like studs all spring, which we've seen. And then, you got big guys, good size, good speed, and then they get to the season, they just drop balls all season long. Like, never learn how to catch a ball. But then they go into, like, a senior bowl, and they look great. I don't know what the hell's going on with Pitt tight ends the last handful of years. Oh, what about Keyshawn Camp? I want to see if he's moving around, too. Don't we want to see some of the guys that were banged up last year out there running around? They should be out there in the spring, right?
I don't know this early.
Yeah, Camp and Weaver. I'm not sure if we're going to see either of those guys in the spring. And Alan, I mean, you played the position, so you could tell us. I don't really think it's that necessary to see them this early in the spring, because I think, come the fall, it's going to be telling those guys to go get the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm just hoping those guys are at least out there doing jumping jacks, maybe
they might, yeah.
running a little bit, doing some karaoke's. Yep, exactly. That's what I want to see. That'll just put my heart at ease a little bit, knowing that those guys are healthy, hopefully, and feeling better after. I mean, what the hell kind of defense would Pitt have had if they had those two guys all season last year? My God.
That's what we're waiting to see this fall. Just rolling out, one good defensive lineman after another. Just can't wait to see that group. But for the spring here, one group I'm interested in seeing is this offensive line. I think they made some steps forward last year. Played a lot of young guys, a lot of first-timers, still not there yet. I'm interested just to see who's running with, appears to be running with the first team, who appears to be running with the second team, because they got to get this group better. They got to get this straightened out. I'm not saying that we got to have the final group at the end of the spring, but I think it's critical to see how these guys are progressing going into the fall.
Yeah, for sure. And the offensive line, I think, at the end of the season started cleaning up their act a little bit, so we'll see how they progress. And then, of course, new strength and conditioning programs for Pitt, new staff. So that also will be something to keep an eye on. The mass, the girth, who's pushing metal hardest this summer and the spring. And it all begins next week. I can't wait just to speculate on, people putting morsels on Panther Lair and then us just taking them for entire episodes talking about something someone may have seen at practice. I'm excited for it, Pam. That's the best.
Yeah, that's one way to describe it.
That's the thing. We're going to see this, this spring game. That's really the only visibility we're most likely going to see. And that's coming up on April 11th. But the unfortunate part is that, in the past, this the format for the spring game has been this draft. And I'm all for a good draft, but this draft has not been, I think, good for the quality of the game, just mixing up players. And it's hard to really gain anything out of it. I think Narduzzi likes that, but for us fans that are trying to see what, these units may look like, it doesn't do us any good.
No, yeah, I want to see the actual guys that the coaches are thinking about playing on first team, second team out there with their units. Here's a suggestion. I'll put this out there early before spring game. What if you played under XFL rules? What do you think about that? You want the quality of the play, the game to be quick. You go with that cool new kickoff they got, and then you finish it with that crazy shootout overtime they have.
I think it would be excellent for the fans. I'm not quite sure how much the team would gain out of doing
It's
something
football.
like that.
It's football.
It is, yeah, and it's played in the spring too, so it would kind of fit.
It would. That's just a suggestion, Coach, if you're listening. But there's your football. We got anything left on football before we get to hoops? They're currently getting spanked by Syracuse as we record this podcast live on tape. You want to talk about this team at all, Pam? Because they look pretty bad right now.
Very quickly, before we were set to record, I was informed that Pitt was a favorite in this game, actually coming in.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, they're going to lose by 20 because anytime they're a favorite, they'll lose by 20, especially at home. That's what happened against Clemson. And we watched the first half, and it was just putting me to sleep. This team has just – we talked just a few weeks ago about them not hitting that wall. They hit it, they ran right into it, and they've fallen over, and they cannot get up. I just checked the ACC standings to see how bad they are. And, I mean, there's an outside chance that they could drop to last. I don't think they will. I think North Carolina may have wrapped that position up there.
Yeah, and Alan, we had talked about last week how, this team – yeah, they look like they're better, but at the end of the day, we got to see some wins and losses. And if they don't produce any more wins the rest of the season, I think they will only have one more win than they did last year. I guess it's improvement, but how much improvement is that really? I mean, if that's where it ends up, it in a down year for the ACC, maybe that's a little disappointing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. The ACC's historically bad this year.
And we had all kinds of hope at just a couple of weeks ago talking about moving in the right direction. This is a brutal wall they've hit. And I don't know if the players are looking ahead to spring break coming up in a couple weeks or what, but my goodness, this is hard to watch now because it almost looks like they have no fight and gas left at all. They're at home tonight, just getting absolutely demolished by not a great team.
A rival, too.
It's a waffle stomping, Alan.
It's a mollywhopping. It's bad. And I don't want to even look over at the screen anymore, actually. I'm going to turn.
Yeah, it's, at the beginning of the season, at the beginning of the ACC play, they were up and down. Yeah, they were, didn't look great at times, but, at least they were winning a couple games here and there. Win one, lose one. But then it's like, it's like they got a 40-pound costume on, and then the next thing you know, they're getting knocked out. I mean, it's just not good.
No, not at all. And it's really bad because who I just saw was in the game, Anthony Starzinski. That's how you know that it's not going right. And there's still like 6 minutes left in this game.
Well, he started the game, Alan.
He started
as a senior.
Yeah, they started the seniors, which I loved. They took him right out. I loved it. It was great. This
isn't Rudy. He started this game. I guess I turned it off right after tip. They must have ripped him right out of there right away. Tip the ball off, win the tip, throw it out of bounds, and let's make a substitution.
Yeah, and speaking of which, Kenny Chukwuka and Samson George.
Oh, this is sad.
These guys are going to be moving on from the team. And to me, this is more just Capel just trying to clean house and get some
like
better
Chukwuka,
players
though.
in here.
Yeah, I like Chukwuka, though. I was hoping get healthy and we'd have a big Swede to look forward to next year, giving some valuable minutes late in games, playing some D and getting rebounds.
Yeah, so, Terrell Brown is the last remaining Kevin Stallings player. I hope he didn't rat out anybody.
You killed my brother, you dirty rat.
So, and he's been one that we talked about last week, excuse me, just disappointing this year and just hasn't shown the growth that he needs to. And, we'll be talking about it in the future, but, they got 3 freshmen coming in that are, post players, and you got to think that these guys should be given every opportunity possible to not just crack that starting lineup, but play valuable minutes down there at the 4 and 5 position. And you also got to think that a transfer, a graduate transfer, something like that has also got to be in play here, because this team needs to get ACC caliber players in here quickly.
And depth. Most importantly, depth. Cannot be going this late into the season with just a couple of guys playing all game long. Obviously, you see it reflected in what's happened the last 2 weeks. They have no gas left. They're at home. Final game in the zoo this year, and just getting shellacked by Syracuse. Finishing off the season, NC State and Georgia Tech. Hopefully definitely beat Georgia Tech, hopefully. And we'll see about NC State. Finish this thing off. Is NIT even a possibility, Pam?
I don't think so. I think we're looking at the CBI again, potentially.
If that.
Yeah.
The NIT tends to, I think they're going to take they always take a lot of mid-majors too.
True.
There's going to be more mid-majors than the NCAA, so then you got some bigger names being left out as well. So the NIT may take those. Pitt's not going to make the NIT. I'll
think
tell you
about
that
how
now.
many. The ACC is only going to get probably 4 or 5 teams in the NCAA tournament right now at most. And think about how many ACC teams are ahead of Pitt right now.
Right.
All those teams are going to be
almost all of them
eligible for the NIT, instead. So, yeah, it doesn't look good for any postseason play. Yeah, everybody wants those extra practices and game situations as an opportunity to get better. But I'll tell you this, every day is an opportunity to get better. And it's in a blessing at that. So you got to think that maybe, it may be best for just the season to end. And then, so they can move on.
Yeah, and focus on finals coming up too. Those are going to be really important for some of these guys. Carry momentum into the next season. Let's talk momentum though. Women's basketball, two opportunities here, Pam, to maybe get some more ACC victories under the belt. Lance White, at least to the media, has been talking all of his young players up a lot. Really proud of what they've done. He's been saying this year. Hasn't been reflected in the win column, but we've talked about it all year. Would be a lot of growing pains for Pitt women's hoops.
Yeah, and with the Pitt women's team, your younger players have been playing better all year long, which is what you want to see. You're able to point and say, okay, these are our building blocks going into next year. Day Harris, Amber Brown, those are 2 people you can build around. Virginia's a pretty solid team in the ACC. Miami is towards the bottom like Pitt is, so maybe they can grab a win there. But the women's conference tournaments start usually the week earlier than the men. So the ACC women's basketball tournament will be starting around March 3rd. And, it'll be a competitive tournament nonetheless, even though Pitt will probably see an early exit.
And we don't often compare because doesn't make a lot of a sense, but it is kind of parallel how you've been looking for a lot of younger player development throughout the season for both the men's team and the women's team, and I would say it's kind of the same story, isn't it? You got I'm excited for Champagny and Tony going forward. Pitt men's hoops with with Johnson and McGowan, they've got, I think, more bullets in it loaded, ready to go, hopefully next year. But Pitt women's hoops also showing some promise with the youth movement in the program. Both trying to bounce back from bad situations inherited by these coaches.
Yeah, and as well as Champagny has done, he can go really cold in certain games as well. So
like
it's
tonight.
good to see. Yeah, it's good to see Brown and Harris consistently get those numbers on the boards as well. Very complete players.
There you go. That's hoops And it's not a fun state of affairs at all. And it's raining out, so it just feels extra crappy, at least this evening, that Pitt's getting spanked by Syracuse. Let's talk about some good Pitt athletics, though. Wrestling! Vince beat Virginia Tech to finish off the regular season and headed off hosting ACC tournament action. And we talked a little bit about it last year. There is a lot to look forward to for Pitt wrestling.
Yeah, Pitt, they upset the number 7 ranked Virginia Tech Hokies 18-13. Pitt's moving up to number 8 in the entire country. I believe that's according to the Associated Press. This victory over Virginia Tech, who's one of the top squads, this was highlighted by a victory by the Italian Dream, Nino Bonacorsi. He upset the number 2 ranked Hunter Bolin in the 184-pound weight class. Alan, this was a major upset, not just for the team but for Nino, and given this team some big momentum going into the ACC championships.
Epic victory for Nino Bonacorsi. Maybe because we built him up and talked him up last week, Vince. We said keep an eye out. Beats number 2 ranked in the country at 184. How'd our big boy do though? Demetrius Thomas.
Demetrius Thomas. Yeah, number 10 ranked in the country. Demetrius Thomas. He won a majority decision over John Borst, who is the number 18 ranked heavyweight, 285 pounds. So another big win for Demetrius Thomas. And a lot of these Pitt players, they're ranked here. Mickey Filippi for Pitt, he's ranked number 5 at 133 pounds now. He defeated a top 25 guy and Colin Girardi. So that's huge for Pitt. And it looks like they're going to be making some noise in this ACC tournament. If they were able, now that they're able to beat Virginia Tech, I think it's anybody's match kind of whenever it comes to the ACCs, and then we'll see where they end up in the national championship.
Yep, Pitt's definitely capable of beating anybody on the mat, and it's crazy because the ACC tournament will be as competitive as it is national. It basically is. Talk about going through the ringer, star-studded, opposite of hoops, the ACC in wrestling, and we'll be following it all through now into March, and hopefully they keep mat control. Vince, keep some mat control. And, definitely, of course, Nino Bonacorsi, one to keep an eye on. Just flying up the ranks, super fun to watch. There we go. Pitt Athletics currently. And now we can talk about what you're talking about. Let's go and hit up the Pitternet real quick.
Can you explain what internet is?
I hear there's rumors on the internets.
And to all those faceless keyboard warriors on Twitter.
But we're a good darn football team. I'm proud of these guys.
We're going to go to the Pitternet, and actually, we rarely, Pam, I don't think if ever, have talked about a public figure talking on the Pitternet, have we?
No, this is someone with a blue check mark, right?
Yeah,
if that's what you want to consider. I'd say some of those people on Panther there are public figures.
They are, I guess, technically.
Someone with a blue check mark.
There you go. Paul Zeiss does have a blue check mark. And he had some interesting reactions to the NCAA violations on Twitter at Paul Zeiss. Quote, NCAA, quote, have the FBI put your assistants in jail, get caught on wiretaps arranging $50,000 payments, and make up fake classes. Well, that's okay. Wait, you had a couple of non-coaches feeding basketballs to post players at practice? Off with your head! And he said, best part of this whole nonsense, the athletic department was looking to catch the basketball program with their hand in the cookie jar. You mentioned that, Vince. And the basketball coaches said, F that. We're going down and taking football with us. I don't always agree with this gentleman, this sports media figure in the city. But I got to say, he kind of nailed it on that last point, especially there, Vince.
Yeah, he can... I'm with you, Alan. I don't always agree with him, but here he brought a lot of common sense and saying what a lot of people might be afraid to say. So I respect him for that, and I think he's dead on here.
So that actually leads me to, I know, Pam, we've got a very high character on this show. We try to maintain a moral standard. But what about, what do we do? We got to get Kevin Stallings in a steel cage with Pat Narduzzi for just 5 minutes. We got to get Pat Narduzzi a shot at Kevin Stallings for all this, don't we?
I mean, maybe it's a dark match, one that no one can see.
Yeah.
Not on TV.
Well, Alan, I'm thinking maybe it should be a lumberjack match, and you have all those extra coaches surrounding the ring.
Yeah, the NCAA violation match. Oh man. Well, that's what they're saying on the Pitternet a little bit about these violations. A lot of people talking about rats, which was fun, but we wanted to pull out some common sense there from Mr. Paul Zeiss. I called into his radio show one time. It was an excellent conversation. Maybe one day he'll call into this podcast to return the favor. Pam, would you like to ask him a few questions? We could reach out.
Yeah, if he has more excellent comments about the hypocrisy of the NCAA, we'd love to hear that.
I could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, we might have to, as more and more more and more stuff comes out, and then as more and more states start changing their rules about how college athletes get treated. Before we ride off into the sunset and talk some college basketball at large, let's see what they're talking about at the bars and the restaurants and the street corners and the barber shops around town. Here we go, Vince. I mean, they're going to be talking about what, rats? Are they going to be talking about Pitt wrestling? What do you think they're talking about around town?
This Kevin Stallings thing has a lot of people just, turned on their heads. They're just very upset.
All right, let's see what's happening.
Another Saturday coming, and the Panthers are playing. Time to find out what the Panthers are saying.
You see how Kevin Stallings ratted out Narduzzi. Yeah, he didn't even do nothing.
Yeah, that Stallings is horrible. I even heard he was responsible for getting rid of the log jammer in that.
Yep, you're right. He even caused that Rax to close down in Murraysville.
That's horrible. This guy. Wait, Rax? Wasn't that where the hills used to be over there?
No, you jag off. That's where Ames was.
Oh. Hail to Pitt.
What the Panthers are saying.
So that's what the Inzers are saying. Bottom line is that, these violations really aren't that big of a deal, but that still doesn't mean Kevin Stallings should be excused for what he did here. Just absolutely ridiculous. But I say we got to move past this.
I'm so pissed off about that. The only thing that could calm me down's, I don't know, like an icy or a popcorn from Hills.
Yeah, it's or maybe a Rax roast beef. But
slushy.
Yeah. But to move on, we got to talk about some college basketball. Last week we talked about the men's college basketball and their top 16 reveal. This week we're going to talk about the women's. They started the trend of revealing this top 16.
That's damn right.
For the tournament. Their most recent one that I have here is of February 2nd, Pam. So let's talk about those rankings as well as the most recent ones for the Associated Press.
Yeah. In the past, the women's college basketball has done a few rankings throughout the year. From what I can see, they were only going to do this February 2nd ranking. And a lot has actually changed even in the past 48 hours from this ranking. For everyone's familiar with Joe Lenardi, the men's bracketologist, Charlie Cream is the women's bracketologist, always up to date. One thing that hasn't changed since February 2nd is South Carolina is a top of the list. South Carolina is a powerhouse this year, and they are beating everyone in their path. Baylor is also top of the list as well. Right now, Charlie Cream has South Carolina, Baylor, Oregon. Lots of hype surrounding Sabrina Ionescu. If you have not seen this woman play, turn on an Oregon women's basketball game and watch her. She is the real deal. She'll be the number 1 pick going to the New York Liberty come the WNBA draft in April. She is the real deal.
Yeah, she is the best college basketball player this year, regardless of what chromosomes you may or may not possess. She is the best, bar none, men or women. If you were going to watch one college basketball player this year, Sabrina Ionescu is the one you got to watch.
It's in the past few years. So we have those 3 are the top 3 seeds that kind of are no-brainers. And this 4th number 1 seed has fluctuated a lot so far. Right now, Charlie Cream has Maryland, who has been playing their best basketball at the best time right now as well. Louisville was up there, but they've had some rough losses. NC State was up there, but they have dropped dramatically. As of now, they may not even get a 3 seed if we're looking specifically at ACC play there. NC State is falling dramatically. Stanford's up there. They lost to Oregon the other night, but Sabrina Ionescu, no one could stop her there as well. And looking at another team that's on the rise here is Northwestern. They're up into the 2 line under Charlie Cream right now. Now, I know everyone's going to ask, what about UConn? UConn's going to get a 2 seed. Their conference is a joke, and they had some losses in non-conference play that they really had to have there as well. They're 6th overall in the country according to the latest AP poll there. You'll see Maryland 7th in the latest AP poll, but they're number 1 seed based on their strength of schedule. And this year, everything's wide open. I do think Oregon is the favorite to win it, but a lot of these seedings are going to be decided by the conference tournaments coming up first weekend of March here.
Super exciting. And Sabrina Ionescu at the Kobe Bryant Memorial, I mean, just she's maybe the best athlete of 2020 so far, Vince. I might put her up there. I mean, in terms of what she's doing for the game, what she back-to-back triple-doubles. I can't wait to see her in the tournament. Unbelievable.
She is impressive. There's no doubt about that.
She's the first player, men or women, to have 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 1,000 assists in her NCAA career. Yep. Amazing.
Maybe the best fantasy basketball player.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
But Pam, you touched on, some of the top, maybe the teams are going to be up on the 1 and 2 line. Could you give us some teams that we should be paying attention to that are maybe towards the bottom of the top 25 or maybe like a 3 or a 4 seed that you could see really making a run in this tournament?
Also for me, Pam, too, can you identify for me the San Diego State, for basically the team I should be rooting for come the tournament?
Okay, so Texas A&M in the latest AP poll was 12th. They have potential to get up to maybe a 2, depending on how they play. They play South Carolina this Sunday in their last game. But Kennedy Carter, who's an absolute baller, an absolute scorer for Texas A&M, had been hurt, and they're playing excellent basketball. So from the 12th position, they'll probably end up as a 3 seed, and I could see them making a deep run in the tournament. A team that's always good in the tournament, Alan, one of those San Diego State teams, DePaul. DePaul always has some good scorers. That's a team to watch. But if you want like a real dark horse to cheer for is Princeton. Princeton consistently in the NCAA tournament the past few years, consistently in the top 25. Princeton there at number 23 will be fun to watch. And then you got South Dakota at number 20. So definitely some parity in the bottom half of this top 25.
But what about Kayla 3-pointer in LSU? Because that's who I'm trying to root for, but I don't know how much of a shot they have.
LSU is a very good team. They don't have the best resume. I mean, some of their biggest wins have been against Tennessee. That's one of their best wins. And Tennessee's definitely better than last year, but still not that great. LSU, they're good, but definitely not there yet.
And
definitely
according according to Way Too Early Bracketology by Charlie Cream, I mean, they would be lined up against Oregon too. So that would not be a good draw for anybody, but be fun to watch, I think.
And something that some fans might not know about in the women's game, the top 16 seeds, why it's so important is those top 16 seeds host the first 2 rounds. Women's basketball has done this recently to try and get more fans to those early games, and it's been very successful. So that 15, 16, 17 cutoff is actually super essential in the women's game.
Yeah, and that's what, a team like an Oregon State who's, played a brutal schedule out in the Pac-12, if they could get one of those top 4 seeds, that could be huge for them moving on. That's one thing I will say, it looks like there's, you talk about those maybe top 6 teams or so in the country, and maybe you could say that there's a drop-off off of that. But, if you look at some of the coaches on these other teams, they're not going to go quietly at all. You talk about Texas A&M with Gary Blair. You talk about Mississippi State with Vic Schaefer. You talk about even a Florida State with Sue Simmerow. They're going to be a very those teams are tough outs. Even a Kentucky team who they don't care what arena they're playing in. They don't care if it's built out of cinder blocks. They'll go out there and they'll give it their all against anybody.
Yeah, now, and you'll like this. The Pac-12 has been the best conference, in my opinion, bar none, easily in women's college basketball this year. So lots of Pac-12 teams to watch in the tournament this year.
I know we don't like Baylor on this show.
No.
But Kim Mulkey did get to 600 wins, right? In the last week. Wasn't that a record, the fastest ever of any coach in the game?
Yes.
Should
she did.
Should we acknowledge that on the show, or is that wrong? Is that violating our moral code?
Well, you just acknowledged it, so there we go. We did our good deed.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, that's a lot of wins. It's a lot of wins.
It is a lot of wins. It is a lot of wins there.
They're also playing more games per season nowadays.
That's true.
It seems like
a lot more. But a lot more. There's a lot more, I think, competitive teams in this game. It doesn't feel as dominated by UConn anymore, which I'm sure a lot of people, like you said, Pam, everyone's going to be like, what about UConn? Those days are long gone. That's wide open.
And they have
tournament.
been the past few years.
Yeah.
Well,
but
Baylor's been running a Big 12 conference. This isn't the men's Big 12. They're just not that strong in the women's, especially without Jody Conrad at Texas anymore.
Yeah,
they're just not the same.
Yeah, Baylor's been dominating that conference for a few years here, but it's gonna be a great tournament. I do think Oregon's gonna take it with Sabrina Ionescu, but South Carolina, they are led by freshmen and their senior point guard Ty Harris, and they are so much fun to watch, and they're going to be a problem for the next 3 years.
I'm sure that's the matchup. The media will be hyping up, and I'm sure that's what we'll probably end up getting when we do. And I'll probably be putting that down in my bracket whenever it comes time. But it's still, like I said last week, Vince, too early for the bracketology. You're killing me with this. But
yeah,
it's coming out earlier and earlier now every year.
Well, believe it or not, next week is March, Allen.
So, it is. Even with it being a leap year, it's already March.
It's scary to think about, but it's true.
Here we are. Well, the good thing, I guess it's not a good thing. We don't have to worry about watching any Pitt games in March. It's all over. It's on to wrestling for us Pitt Panther fans. And of course, like we've been saying, Pitt Panthers in the XFL. Vince, Dwayne Hendricks got a sack last weekend.
Yeah, how about that? A kid that, battled through injuries here, but is really excelling in the XFL. And I could see him maybe making it to a fall league someday.
Well, we'll see what we find out from Pitt Panthers in the XFL this weekend. We'll see how Pitt men's and women's basketball wrap up their season, and we'll be back next week, Pam, to talk all about it. Hopefully no more rats, though. That's what I want to avoid for next week.
Yeah, no rats in the sewer.
Yep. You killed my brother, you dirty rat.
Hills and Ames never had rats.
I don't know about that. I don't know about all the hills at Ames. We'll see. Hey, let us know if you ever encounter rats at a Hills or an Ames. Call in 412-407-3387 or hit us up at H2P Show. Pam, let's get out of here.
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt, everybody. We'll see you right here on your favorite podcast app next week.